Alrighty, folks, looks like we are at 10:45. We're going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Matt Snidecki. I have the honor of being the program manager for the Skills for Small Business grant offered by the Workforce Commission. This is a position that I've been in since I joined the Workforce Commission in 2017. We do a lot of cross training in our office, so we are all very familiar with each other's programs. But this is the program that I have been majorly involved in since I joined TWC. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Before I do want to echo some sentiments from previous speakers. I saw that we had 190 people on for that first session, and I just want to thank everyone, obviously, for joining, but I obviously want to thank our planning team and everyone on our side of the house who had an involvement in putting this together, because obviously by those numbers, it's been a big success so far. So we're going to get started today. We're just going to hop right on into the Skills for Small Business program. We're just going to start by talking about some of the program parameters. This program specifically targets private for-profit businesses in the state of Texas. Now, the big difference between this program and, say, SDF, outside of the customized training piece, is the size of the business that we're targeting. So for this grant, for eligibility purposes, you have to have from 1 employee to 99. For this parameter, we are looking at global footprint. So if you are a smaller subsidiary or attached to a larger corporation, we are going to look at all of those employee total numbers when reviewing your application. Another thing that I'd like to hone in on is, in order to be considered eligible as a business partner, you have to have a valid UI tax number with TWC. During our review process, that's something that we're going to check. But I always encourage colleges or other entities who are working or promoting the SSB program to be familiar with that. So if they don't have a UI tax number, we don't tell them they're going to be eligible. We run into that a lot where businesses apply and they may not have a valid UI tax number. So obviously that application is not eligible. The program pays $1,800 and $900 respectively for new employees and for existing employees. So for those two categories of employees, new and existing, new employee is defined as someone who has been hired within the last 12 months. And we actually use the application submission date as the end date there. So anyone hired between 12 months of that submission date would be eligible for that full amount. Now, this is just all in a 12-month period. So after that 12-month period ends, a new hire would not be a new hire anymore, but they would be eligible as an existing employee for $900. And my colleagues will attest to this a little bit later, but you would be very surprised with the amount of training that you can receive for $1,800 and $900 respectively. I think the neat caveat about this program and the way it functions is actually the fact that the courses that are available for funding under this grant program are actually public courses found in all of these community college, technical schools, and TEKS, their public catalog. So if you're a business online right now and you're saying, wow, this program seems like we could really benefit and it could benefit our employees, the first place I always encourage you to start is by looking at those course catalogs and seeing what's available. You may think you need some training, and then you may see another training that sparks another idea. So that's a great place to start. So if you're a business and you check off all the other eligibility requirements, as an individual employee, who is eligible? So this program is for full-time W-2 employees. Again, as we just said on the previous slide, that covers both new and incumbent workers. And again, we're just using that 12-month period, that hiring period, to justify new or incumbent. And then I know a lot of folks on the call today are going to be familiar with prevailing wage. Depending on the job that the applicant holds, we're going to look at the wage and the prevailing wage that that person makes in your specific workforce development area. So just a real quick recap of prevailing wage. So if we're looking at a plumber, well, a plumber in El Paso may not make what a plumber in Dallas makes or in Texarkana. So we're going to look at the wage that you submit on the application for this individual plumber. And then we're going to look at the prevailing wage in your workforce development area. So if an entry-level plumber made $10 an hour and an experienced plumber made $20 an hour, we're going to look at the 25th percentile of that wage gap, which is only $10. And again, I'm just using these numbers just so it's simple. So 25th percentile of that $10 would be $2.50. So in order for that individual to meet prevailing wage, they would have to be making $12.50 or more to be eligible. If an applicant is not meeting prevailing wage, we will always work with the business. If the amount is minuscule and the business would like to increase the wage, say it was a dime or even a nickel or a penny, then they are afforded that right to do so, and then that applicant would be eligible. So how does the process work? So obviously all of the training is provided by our college partners. They are the cog in the, or they are the piece of the wheel that really makes the Skills for Small Business grant work. However, we function in SSB with a shell contract. So that is the first place that the process has to start, is in order for a college or institution to provide SSB funded training, they have to have a contract established with the Workforce Commission. So now I just want to highlight this graphic on the right is as simple as it gets. It typically doesn't work this way, but just as a simple understanding of how the process works, I think this gets the job done. And I will say the funds are drawn down from workforce to the college, hence the arrow going down. And then the business would apply with the college through TWC almost as a scholarship. And once deemed eligible, they are sending their employees to the college to get upskilled, hence the up arrow. A lot of puns in that graphic. So with this program, what type of courses are funded? I know we talked about the public course catalog, and that's all great, but there's a lot of courses in those catalogs. The neat thing about this program is credit, continuing ed, and online courses are all funded and eligible. Now, there is a justification piece on the application where we need to hear from the business and get an understanding or justification of how these business or how these training courses are going to improve your business operations. I will note, we don't fund degree plans through this program. So sometimes the credit courses can get a little tricky in that regard. And I would say that about 90%, and I know Christy and Luis can confirm this, a lot of the courses that we see participated in throughout the state are going to either be continuing ed or online courses. Online courses also afford an awesome avenue for folks in rural areas who may not have an institution within driving range or within an immediate proximity. So online courses give them the awesome resource of taking these training courses from their computer or from their home. And I will note that you don't have to take a training course from a service provider in your area if the course is online. If someone in the state of Texas who is an eligible provider has a course and it's online, it is available to apply for. And here's just a list of some sample courses that we've seen participated in over the years. QuickBooks is a massive one that we see, accounting and bookkeeping. But one thing I do want to highlight about this slide is just the massive scope that we cover with these courses. Something from Microsoft training and Windows training to CAD and auto drafting to OSHA. So really anything under the sun that can improve your business operations is eligible to apply for. One of the big ones that we hear from employers all the time are soft skills. leadership training, customer services on there. How do you work with a team? All those things are imperative for a business to function, and they are all fundable under this grant. So this is just a quick data deep dive. I wanted to highlight here some of the numbers that we've requested, or what we've gotten requested from applications, and then the training we've approved. So as you can see, the number has significantly gone up for dollar amount requested. FY19, I will note, our fiscal years start September of the previous year and run September to September. So obviously you can see if FY19 was a great year with almost over $500,000 more requested and $400,000 more approved in training. But then obviously we run into FY20, and with the combination of COVID obviously really impacting businesses and their priorities, a lot of folks were just trying to keep their doors open and not necessarily focused on immediate training. Coupled with the fact that we had an additional grant, our previous speakers talked about the COVID skills training initiative, and that afforded small businesses the opportunity to apply for that training as well and receive rapid response training through that grant program. So as you can see, COVID and the availability of another grant opportunity brought numbers down a little bit for FY20. And here is that data just plotted on a bar graph. So you can see that the program was really taking off and growing prior to COVID. And so as I wrap up here, I would be remiss if I didn't mention National Small Business Week. National Small Business Week is the first week every year of May. And we always like to promote and highlight small businesses throughout the state who have not only participated in the program, but really felt the benefits and grown. And as you can see, the megaphone is talking to all of you that we need your input for this. If you have participated in the program or you would like to participate in the program, we would love to hear your story and highlight that in our National Small Business Week video. We publish that again during National Small Business Week every year. So we would love your input. I know we have some phenomenal small business partners who have done wonderful things with this program. So we would love to hear and highlight those stories. So please don't hesitate. My contact information is coming up. So if you have any of those stories, please feel free to share them with them. We do have a video link. Playing videos through Zoom with this many folks and bandwidth can be a little tricky. So I'll go ahead and hop into the chat once I'm done speaking, and I'll put that hyperlink in there so you can all check it out. It's our National Small Business Week video from a couple years ago, and it's really neat. It highlights 3 businesses in very differing industries, and it's very powerful to see how they've taken advantage of the program. So again, here is my contact information. Again, I'm sure a lot of folks were like, how does he spell that last name? I'm Matt Snidecki. Again, I'm the program manager for the Skills for Small Business Grant. There's my office and cell phone number, as well as my email address. And on the right, those hyperlinks, that top one is our Skills for Small Business email address. And then the bottom one is our homepage with the Workforce Commission for the SSB program. Now I would like to transition gears a little bit and get a fresh perspective from one of our college partners. They've been a fantastic steward for the program for a long time since I've been here. And I would like to introduce my 2 panelists, Luis Gonzalez, who's the Associate Dean of Continuing Education with Odessa College, and Christy Pruitt, who is the Business and Industry Sales Coordinator with Odessa College. Like I said, these folks have done phenomenal things with the program over the past couple years, and I would love for them to share some of their stories and their input about how they have benefited and how their small business community has benefited from this program. So I'm going to stop speaking and I'm going to turn it over to Luis and Christy.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate it. Oh, we gotta make sure we're not echoing here. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So, okay. Thank you for having us here. We are excited to be able to share our story with you guys. Again, my name is Christy Pruitt, and I am the Business and Industry Sales Coordinator here at the Continuing Education for Odessa College.
And again, I want to echo what Christy said. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mario, and others that were involved in this and inviting us. We're excited about this opportunity and excited about talk to you a little bit about SSB and the benefit that it's had for our community and our surrounding community for that too. Just so you'll know, at Odessa College, our service area, and I think we have the largest service area is 32,000 square miles. So if you're familiar with West Texas and you know where we're located in Odessa, Texas, and you go far south as the Fort Davis area, Presidio, and you go that far south, you go as far west as almost, that's not quite there, but we go pretty far west, north. So we have a huge service area. And within that service area is a lot of rural communities. And what Matt was speaking about earlier about really that access. They have very limited access. There's no other institutions really close to these businesses of this kind of opportunities. So that online is certainly a great resource for them. But also, as you'll learn, and Chris will talk about some of the companies that we have been able to provide assistance to in these rural communities and what the benefit is and how much they like that access to it. But again, both Christy and I, we started in continuing education almost about a month apart. I came in first, Christy followed, and but we were newbies. This is about 3 years ago. And we had learned as we were coming in and through the transition about the SSB. We heard about that. The outgoing staff members or team members were telling us about SSB. And we thought, okay, that sounds interesting. It sounds wonderful. Let's learn more about that. And so we really started to focus our attention on that. What we had learned at that point is the team at that point had utilized about $2,000, or a little less than that. But when Christy and I came in, we started learning more about it. We thought, man, what a great opportunity. What a great opportunity for our companies and our businesses. Again, here in West Texas, in the center of the oil patch, if you will, there are lots, during the boom particularly, there are a lot of startups. So there are a lot of small businesses that are coming in that are wanting to hopefully take advantage and seek that opportunity during these oil booms. But what we realized in a lot of those startup companies is when they get started, the financial resources are very limited. And so we learned quickly that through the SSB, that this gives us and them an opportunity to help upskill their employees and their business alike too, so that they can perform what they need to do for their business. So it's been tremendous. We really have enjoyed it. And so we'll talk a little bit more about it and kind of tell about one of the businesses that we work with and what we're trying to do with this to continue to really grow and utilize these funds and have an impact on these community and surrounding communities.
So one of the things that we learned is the oil and gas here is one of our big industries, but it's also up and down often. So at being the business and industry sales coordinator, what I do is I go out, I start building relationships with the companies and learning about their needs. And we realized real quick that the SSB is a very simple application. Matt did a wonderful job on explaining everything, the details of the application, but it's very simple. So we go out, we listen to the customer's needs, and then we realized quickly too, talking about the courses, we were able to expand our courses. And the more that we go out and listen to what the company's needs are, we can actually come back and build even more courses. Because if they're needing it, other people are going to be needing it as well. And so we've actually been able to broaden our course offerings to the public. And so that's been very beneficial to the community as well as Odessa College. But we learned quickly that the SSB is a simple application, and Matt covered a lot of what we were going to talk about. We know it's for full-time employees. They have to have a W-2. They have to be meeting the prevailing wage. And one of the things that we've learned, TWC is an amazing partner to with, because with the SSB, with Leslie and Shuba and Patricia and Marnie, they are excellent to work with through the details of it. So you send in the application, they're not meeting the prevailing wage, but they help you connect to see if they actually are putting down the right job title, because there's numerous times that the small businesses, they don't have the big job descriptions and the details that the larger companies might have. That's one way that they'll help us be able to see, do they have the right job title? We've had a couple of companies that they had the right job titles, they weren't meeting the prevailing wage, and so we actually work with the company and let them know, if you give them whatever the percentage is, I think some of them were like 20 or 30 cent raise, and so the employee actually will benefit from it as well as the employer, and then it's a win-win all the way around for that part. So TWC works really well with you to make sure that it's all, they don't just say no, we work through a process with TWC on that part. Once the amount, or once the funds are approved, you have 90 days to start that class, whatever the class is, you have 90 days to be able to start it. And so we've learned through the process, one of our, again, TWC has taught us that if we have to change, because a lot of the oil field, they'll have hot jobs, and so then they'll cancel coming into the class, and so we'll have to reschedule it, but it has to be rescheduled within that 90 days. And so then that has been good. Then when you're working through the details of it, you receive a tip, just like you do with the SDF. So if you're familiar with the SDF, you'll work, it's very, very similar, except for all the reporting is the same, except for you don't have to continue to keep up with the employee afterwards. You know, with the SDF, you have 90 days, I believe it is, that you follow the employee to make sure that they're still working at the company. And with this one, you don't. So you don't have quite as many details that you have to keep up with or to monitor. And so it makes it a very simple, and like Matt showed on that, his diagram, it's that simple. So we learned real quickly that it's beneficial to everybody. We actually have made simple processes or procedures in there. So our reg forms, we send them out a reg form that has everything on there for, because the questions are very similar to the SDF. So there's more questions that are on our regular reg form. So we have developed a reg form just for the SSB. And then once the class is finished, one thing that we've learned is that we've implemented checks and balances throughout that process. So you can draw down on those funds whenever, but we've learned what's best practice for us is that once the class is completed, we work closely with our accounting, and then we make sure that the students' accounts are clear, and we just have a checks and balance before we do any of it. Before we draw down, we make sure that the classes are completed. And if anybody has any questions, we'll be glad to go over all of it with you.
And I think one thing to know too, when Christy mentioned simplicity, simple, and I think that's real too, because when you visit these companies and you start to talk about the application, what's needed, sometimes it can frighten them. They're not really sure what they may be committing to or what they're filling out.
Yeah,
And when you use Texas Workforce Commission, they're thinking the states, now the government's going to be watching them. But when we start to talk to them and give them a little more information and the simplicity of what they need, then they're a little more open to that too. We'll get a little bit of that, not much, but once they've done it one, you've got them on the hook. And when I say that, I mean that they're eager to do more training. And I think what Matt mentioned earlier too, those dollars truly do go a long way. Those training dollars go to work with. They knew that timeline, that 12-month period, and they were coming back to us again after that 12 months, ready for another set of training too. So it's very much. Once you get them in, and once you get them in, they're very aware of it, very thankful, and you'll see them become repeat customers, and where you can really build and help them grow their company too. I think the other thing to mention too, because our service area is so large, and I said it, a lot of it's rural. A lot of it's rural
So
communities as
one
well.
of our
So
challenges,
one of our challenges, how do we get the word out? We have some of our extension sites in some of these areas,
the vast majority.
not the
And
vast
so we
majority.
started really
And so we started really teaming up with our media department on college,
saying, how do
on
we get
campus,
this out?
saying, how do we get this out?
We
We started looking at radio and TV ads. So we scheduled those to get the word out. We had lots of different deliverables that we had printed out to send out to these rural communities and businesses. One of the things that Christy did with some of our communities is really set up informational sessions. And we found that to be very beneficial too. Inviting these partners and companies to come in, we would sit down and talk to them about the SSB. And that proved to be very beneficial as well. Working with the chambers, that's been tremendous for us too. They have a lot of contact. A lot of small businesses go to the chamber. They want to be a member of that for multiple benefits. And one of those being through the SSB and getting that information to them. And we work with our local workforce team as well. They are great. They're very helpful in making those connections too, because you'll start to learn, many of you already know, it really is about building those relationships, networking and connecting. And then when you do that with businesses, they too start to share that. And then we start to get calls too. So then it almost becomes where you're sitting back and people are calling you, hey, I've heard about this opportunity. What can we do? Our company is interested in those types of things. So we do a lot of those things, but I'm going to turn over. I'm going to let Christy talk about the one business that we started the training in one of the rural communities.
I got muted. So, hey, yeah, the rural community, Fort Davis, actually, we have a company out there that we work with, and they actually take welding classes. It's a construction company, construction, and so they are one of our very first ones that Lewis and I did here in CE. And so every year, Phil knows, and we start discussion, and as he puts on new employees, he knows to come in, and we automatically, we have a spreadsheet that we keep all of it, but anyway, we automatically know that it's time, and he knows that he can rely on us, and we just work it out. But I think we are actually running out of time. I don't know if we're going to open it up to any questions. Matt, I'll let you take back over, but we look forward to continuing to work with TWC and our partners, and we appreciate everything from you guys.
Awesome. Thank you for all that input. And I would like to hone in on something that Luis said, and it goes back to that graphic I showed you earlier, where that was just as simplified a version as you could possibly make it look, or the process look. But in reality, there's going to be so many other entities involved, and it really is a collaborative effort. You heard Luis talk about how involved they are, not only with the business community, but with their chambers and with their workforce solutions office, economic development group. So there's just so many partners at play here who obviously have a huge impact on that collaborative effort with this program. I also want to big kudos to Odessa College. They've really kind of created some niche programs out there for their very large service area. So I want to thank them for what they've done and what I know that they're going to continue to do for their small business community. And before we jump into questions, I'll leave you with one thought. Our Commissioner Julian Alvarez always says that one of the most profound things about our programs is that these programs will change lives of people that you may never meet. Some people who participate in these courses, they're jobs, they're not jobs anymore. They are career paths, and their career paths are significantly altered for the better because of some of the training programs that we offer here at the Workforce Commission. So I think that is a profound feeling that, there are some people participating in these courses who possibly have never set foot on a college campus before, or who have transitioned into a completely new job with a better wage and providing a better life for their family. So if you're ever down, I always like to think about that and the extent and the impact that some of our programs offer. And my last thought, our old chairwoman and now Secretary of State Ruth Hughes used to have employers ask her, well, what if I train these folks and they leave my company? And she would respond, well, what if you don't train them and they stay? So I do want to highlight again that this program really does have a great impact, not only on increasing the efficiency of your business, but also increasing the efficiency of these specific employees and giving them a better opportunity to succeed through these trainings. So I really do think that there is a profound benefit to the program. And again, if you need any information or any assistance with an application, please reach out to myself and we'll get you in contact with the right people. Thank you. And Muriel, I'm going to open it up with you and we can answer any questions for myself, Luis, or Christy.
Perfect. And so we're running a little short on time, so I have a few questions. The first question is, if a training course is more than the 1,800 or 900, will that automatically disqualify someone from participating?
Really good question. I actually just answered this from Frank Phillips College right before we started the session. The answer is no, they're not disqualified, and we will fund a maximum amount. It is up to the so they're eligible for the $1,800, and then it's up to the business to cover the remaining $150.
Great. And then for Odessa College, are you seeing any trends with respect to training requests that you've seen, or is it kind of all like, does it run the gamut?
Yeah, it does run the gamut. It just depends. And so I was saying with the oil field in and out, we have a lot of welding, customer service, leadership, Excel, QuickBooks. It's more like that right now, but then we also have HVAC. So there's numerous, run a gamut.
Okay, great. And then another question with respect to the courses, since you did mention that there's some virtual training, does that mean that trainees of a business, they can take courses after hours, on the weekends? Are there any guidance? Is there any like rules around that?
So they can take them outside of normal work hours, but they will have to be paid while they are receiving the training. So that's more of a conversation that we like to have between the college and the business to kind of identify a schedule and a time frame that works for them.
Perfect. And then another question, do you allow for third-party training under Skills for Small Business?
So we do. It's a little tricky in the regard that third-party trainers, we don't want to have one-off third-party training. We like to have that third-party trainer almost have an established relationship. So they have to be considered an adjunct professor with the college, and then third-party training is allowed for that individual or for that person to provide third-party training. But we do require that relationship and rapport and that adjunct title of the third-party provider and the college.
Great. Right. And it looks like that we are out of time. So thank you, Matt, Christy, and Lewis. We really appreciate you providing this great information. And for our audience, please come back at 11:30 because we have a great presentation around self-sufficiency. It's Self-Sufficiency Fund, building and placing a skilled workforce through community-based partnerships. So please join us and enjoy your break. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.